Creflo Dollar actually might be a genius. Maybe this whole time we just did not realize how brilliant Dr. Dollar is. So listen, I am a little tardy to the party. Listen, I had gout. If you don't know what gout is, look it up. I was hurting, couldn't move. For those who don't know, if you watch this video, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, maybe you clicked on this video because you didn't know. But Creflo Dollar has recently came out and he made these statements concerning his stance on tithes.
I want to start off by saying to you that I'm still growing. The teachings that I've shared in times past on the subject of tithing were not correct. And today I stand in humility to correct some things that I've taught for years and believed for years, but could never understand it clearly because I had not yet been confronted with the gospel of grace, which has made the difference. I won't apologize because if it wasn't for me going down that route, I would have never ended up where I am right now. But I will say that I have no shame at all at saying to you, throw away every book, every tape, and every video I ever did on the subject of tithing, unless it lines up with this. I've done some corrective teaching in the last 10 years, but not to the degree of what we're getting ready to do now.
Now, when people watch this, you know, we live in an ecosystem where people get their information from people that they trust. I do hope that we have been able to build some level of trust, but you should listen to the whole sermon. Don't just take my word for what I'm saying that he's saying, because I have a lot of thoughts on what I feel like he's saying. But you may listen to his sermon and you may get a whole different thing. I just say all that to say I would encourage you to personally to listen. Just take time. Do it while you're on the toilet. I don't know. While you're doing something that's not important. I don't know. Just take time and listen to the sermon for yourself and listen to it in its full context and see what it is that he's saying. I personally don't think that he's saying what a fair amount of people think that he's saying, and that is that you don't have to give tithes and offering. He's definitely not saying that. He's actually been saying similar stuff like this, like he said, for the past 10 years. It's just, I don't know, the internet is weird. And, you know, this is actually a kind of a, what's the thing that preachers do? There's a remix. We invented the remix. He preached this message, and he said things like this similar, but I guess, I don't know, maybe it was the throw away all my tapes thing that just really connected with people. And, you know, this time it just sunk in, and you got a fair amount of the church talking. So I wanted to talk about this situation. I don't want to spend too much time talking about Creflo Dollar. I do think that there's some good things that came out of the conversation around tithes and offering that is being had that I want to encourage us to consider. So we're going to deal with that. But concerning Creflo Dollar, I've always I try to be like to each his own. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a big, you know, I grew up on Creflo Dollar, Kenneth Hagin, Kenneth Copeland, Jesse Duplantis, that whole word of faith thing. Now, you know. He's just not my cup of tea, you know what I mean? And I try to keep that mentality. Like, I'm not going to talk about him. I'm not going to put him down. I'm going to just say that he's not for me. Here's the issue, though. It's hard. I'm struggling to see this sermon and the things that he is saying and doing as anything else but manipulation.
So how much is enough? Jesus commended the widow woman because her giving affected her lifestyle. If we give only out of surplus, we've missed the point. You should be giving out of your living. You shouldn't be giving out of your savings. You ought to be giving out of that pot that you buy your groceries with, and it's out of your living. This is going to impact my living. It don't move a millionaire to come in church every Sunday and give $100. You can tell he didn't pray. He ain't asked God for no wisdom. All God's requiring is you go and say, Lord, what do you want me to give? And don't let poverty infect your hearing. I don't know what God said, but I ain't got but $5, so that's what I'm gonna give here today. No, you got $1,000 you was planning on going shopping with. Give $500 out of your living.
I gotta be honest. I don't think it's a misunderstanding. I don't think he's wrong. You know what I mean? I think it is manipulation. Again, he's not saying that he doesn't believe that Christians should be given. What he's saying is that you should not let he's been very, I want to say slick, but, on one hand, he mentions the story of a person who can't pay his bills. And it's like, hey, this dude can't pay his bills. And let's say he only make $800 a month. You want him to take $80 and he got kids, XYZ. But then on another hand, he's like, yeah, and then you got these millionaires and they only giving $100. So it's like, and then he goes on to talk about how, like, if it don't move you, it won't move God. Listen, this is such bull. I could spend all day talking about my issues with Creflo Dollar and the system. And we actually did. We talked about it for 2 hours on the podcast. So if you have not looked at that podcast, listen to that podcast episode. It goes kind of dark, but, I wish that every Christian could hear that podcast. It was, I think it'll be so beneficial. And I think if you hear it, you'll understand why I feel like everybody should hear it. And one of the reasons why is because the onus has to be on us. As much as I want to just come in and say, Creflo Dollar, XYZ, he's this, that, he wasn't preaching to an empty room. I wish that I knew what it was that blinds us. And I'm not saying I'm better than anybody. I'm looking around and ask myself, am I blinded? What it is that blinds us to certain things that are right in front of our face. This dude trying to get your money. One of the things that we need to talk about and discuss that I think gets dicey and uncomfortable is like, what makes a church a church? And what I mean by that, and I've said this a lot, I can go down to the whatever courthouse, I can go online and, file a nonprofit, whatever, and then say, okay, now we have the disruptive faith church. Come on, somebody. Not disruptive faith church. I wanted something more vain. The Tech Power Church. Tech Power Church. I could go down to the freaking online and create the Tech Power Church. Come on. And now I get the right to say that paying me 10% or my church 10% is the same as giving God 10%. You know what I mean? Like, I get to say that now you have to, if I come up with a crazy vision of, we're going to put a freaking fish tank. I was just watching this video. God bless the church. I don't know nothing about the church. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to speak down on you, but it's wild to see. I was watching this video of a church that put a whole freaking aquarium in their church and pays to have a marine biologist just come and take care of the fish in the aquarium. The aquarium was massive. You know what I mean? It wasn't like it was like a wall size, like the wall size of somebody's house. I I get to just do that and say, you know what I mean? And say, this, you give me your money, I'm building an aquarium. You understand? You understand how wild that is? I agree with the principle of giving. I do. I agree with tithing. I think it's something that believers should do. I think, though, what we have done is, I'm going to reference Dave Chappelle here for a second. So Dave Chappelle recently talked about, they learned about, and at Duke Ellington, he learned about a concept called polarization. And the idea behind this concept is that if you get everyone to look at the same thing and to really intensely focus at the same thing, a group of people to look at the same thing, then what happens is their rational mind decreases and their emotional response increases. And so I think it made me think about what happens a lot of times in churches and with believers, is that we are told, and we should, told to focus on Christ. So we're all focusing on Christ, and we love God. We would do anything for God. But what also happens is that there's this little unclear switcheroo to where it's like, all right, you give to a person and not a cause. And now, and I'm trying to be gracious. And now what happens is so let's go back to Tech Power Church. At Tech Power Church, I'm like, God wants you to give. Giving is important. God wants you to change the world. God wants you to impact people's lives, feed the poor, XYZ. And now it's time to give. And we're all focusing on the thing that God wants us to do. We say, now it's time to give. The assumption that I feel like we never address or deal with is that it's given to me, Tech Power Church, the exact same is given to God. And the reason why I say that is not saying that we should not give to churches. What I'm saying is there's no standard. Anybody can declare themselves a pastor. And then they could say, because they are a pastor or because they have a church, now you must give your money to them. You must. You must. You must give your time to them. If I declare myself to be a pastor, if I declare myself to start a church now, and I want to, I don't know, I get this idea. We're going to paint this wall purple, maroon for Jesus. We need volunteers. Now you have to give up your time to do the idea that I came up with. But I told you that this idea was for Jesus. You understand? It's a very easily manipulative position, because now I could tell you that anything that I as the pastor or I as the church do is the same as God himself doing it. And we don't have a clear standard on, like, I'm all about it. I think you should give. I give every week. But we have to have a clear, we have to really discuss and say, okay, what are we giving to? Where's this is going? If I am a steward of God's money, we talk about stewardship all the time in the church, but really a lot of times that stewardship only comes into play with you giving your money to them. That is the extent of your stewardship. Be a good steward of God's money. Give it to me. Well, what are you going to do with it? Well, listen, you've done your part. Let me do mine. You know what I mean? It's like, no, part of that stewardship is no, like, not only what is happening to this money, do I have a say? Do I have a say in what happens? Like, I don't know. Don't punch me in the face. We're just having these conversations. I really don't know if churches would be this big if the congregation had a say between feeding the poor in the neighborhood or building a shinier building or buying a shinier building. Definitely if you can't pay your rent. You know what I mean? Like, you giving tithes and offering, you know what I mean? Like, all right, let's look at this in Acts 2. We're going to start at verse 42, and we're going to read it. And then I want to discuss something. Acts 42. And they would devote themselves to the teaching of the apostles and to fellowship and to breaking bread and prayers. And fear came over every soul, and many wonders and signs were being performed by the apostles. And all who believed were in the place and had everything in common. And they began selling their possessions and property and distributing all things to the degree that anyone had need. And every day they devoted themselves to meeting with one another, meeting with one purpose in the temple courts and breaking bread from house to house. And they were eating their food with joy and with simplicity of heart, praising God, having favor with all people. And the Lord was adding every day to the total of those who were being saved. Now, you see when they gave, maybe they, somebody said it's not tithes and offering. They sold their possessions. And they're going to put it in the pot to make sure that everybody was good. What they didn't do is sell all the possessions and then say, all right, let's build a bigger space to fit all these people. And then maybe we can build a bigger space. And then maybe we can go multi-site. It's just, if we are called to be stewards of if we're called to be stewards of the resources that God has given us, then let's be stewards all the way. Let's be stewards all the way. Like, when you think about Jesus coming in and flipping over the tables of the money changers, when they were selling doves and all sorts of animals, and Jesus got a whip and and drove them out. You understand what I'm saying? And said that my Father's house will be a house of prayer. I'm not saying that we should not give to churches. I think we should. I think that we should require more stewardship, more not only transparency, but say. I'm trying to be honest. Like, more say. And maybe you got room for the people. Maybe everybody will feel differently. Maybe you can vote. I don't know, but this idea that stewardship ends the moment I put it in the pot. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think. Creflo Dollar did not apologize. He's just trying to get more of your money. Maybe it's late. I done had gout. So, I'll try to be more gracious, but I just can't. We got to be better stewards. Me, you, us. I'm not looking for Creflo Dollar change. I ain't looking for Creflo to change. I got to change. You got to change. We got to change. We got to do things differently. We got to stop proxying our faith, our growth to people who are using you to build their platform. I just want to leave us with this. Be a better steward. Know where your money is going and who you're giving it to. Me personally, I'm still gonna give. I'm still gonna give tithes and offering. I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't. I think it's a good thing. I think, like, it was not for tithes and offering, You would have these churches that are like feeding the homeless and you know, taking care of the poor. You wouldn't have all these other things that churches have built through believers' generosity. Like, these things are necessary. These things are necessary, but there has to be a line where I, as a participating giver, have the right and influence to make sure that my giving is not going to the satisfying of your ego. So that I'm giving you 10% of my income, for the work of the Lord. But then you're looking at what XYZ church is doing across the street, and you're like, oh, this is the new thing that we need to be doing because XYZ church is doing it. And then you take the 10% that I gave to you for the work of the ministry, the work of the Lord, and you use that as a tool to manage your insecurities. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. So, you know, let me know you guys' thought. Check out this podcast. Like I said, I think everybody, every believer, every church-going believer, I think, needs to watch this. All right, love you guys. Be blessed.